1 to 2 minutes long. First question. To date, what is the biggest risk you have taken? Bonnie.
Somehow I knew you were going to pick me. To date, the biggest risk I have ever taken. That's a hard one because I'm not really much of a risk taker. I hate to say. I set goals for myself, but I don't really take risks. I haven't even broken a bone in my body.
That's a good thing.
I don't like to do roller coasters. I like to do things like canoeing. I guess the biggest risk maybe that I took ever was when I went on a canoe trip. And we were going along the Loxahatchee River. And there was this one part that there's like a waterfall on the river. And usually it's just like it's just a tiny little waterfall. But the water had receded a lot because of the drought. And the waterfall is actually a lot bigger than it used to be. And I was so afraid. But everybody else was going over it, so I said, okay, let's go. And we ended up going over it, and I did okay. I didn't capsize, but my dad and my son capsized and lost all their stuff in the water. And luckily they had their cameras and everything in Ziploc bags, and they kind of floated, so they got all the good stuff, all the expensive stuff, and everything was okay. And then there was another time when I actually fell over where there was an alligator nest. And my feet, I could feel the nest underneath, and there's a sign that says alligator nesting season. That was pretty risky too. And that's it.
Okay, next. If fear was not a factor, what is the most risky thing you have done? Or would do? If fear was not a factor, what is the most risky thing you would do? Sharon. If fear was not a factor.
Fellow Toastmasters and guests, if fear was not a factor, what would be one of the most risky things I would do? I think that would be jump out of a plane. I mean, because I am really afraid of heights, and to be that far up in the sky and being able to jump out of a plane, that would really, be, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that have that fear. Anyone else have that fear? Okay, show me the raise of hand, right. Sure. And I think that fear is attributed to dreams that we have. Did anyone ever have the dream where it feels like they're falling and falling and falling? And a part of that dream, make you fearful. And I've always heard that people have said that if you ever have that dream and if you hit bottom, you die. I don't know, I think it's an old wives' tale. But that's my biggest fear, is jumping out of a plane.
Next question. Tell us what makes you a risky person. Hebert.
Good evening, Toastmasters, fellow guests. What makes me a risky person? I guess it would be coming here. It's coming here and speaking in front of a little group. The reason I decided to come here is to face my fear, take risks, because everything in life is risk. Ding. That's about it.
Tell us about a time you threw caution to the wind and did not care about the consequences. Tim.
I apologize apologize because I don't know all the protocols, but start off with the good evening, Toastmasters. The question was, again?
Tell us about a time you threw caution to the wind and did not care about the consequences.
Can't think of a time that I haven't thought about the consequences. I do, the nature of my work, I do a lot of risk management type of stuff, but I'll use this as an example coming here tonight. This was a risk for me, personal risk, somewhat vulnerable, and it's not something I typically feel comfortable with, public speaking. So the risk there is exposing my weakness to everybody. That's it.
Thank you. How would you convince your teenager that some of the risks that teenagers make are not worth it? David.
Thank you, Madam. Table Topics Master and fellow Toastmasters and guests. How would I explain to my teenager that the risk he may be taking is not worth it? Well, I had 2 teenagers, and they've grown out of their teen years. I had a son. I taught him how to drive. Have you ever taught a teenager how to drive lately? And he had to have a stick shift pickup truck. Now, there's not many people today that can even drive a stick shift car. I was working construction and I twisted my ankle. I hopped in the passenger seat and asked my helper to take me to the hospital. He looked down and he said, "There's too many pedals." He literally had no idea how to drive the car, how to drive the truck. So I had to limp over to someone else to get a ride. But I think him driving and his first years of driving, and I'm sure there's some of you in here who have sent a teenager out at night in their car for the very first time, and if you didn't wait up all night for them, you're lying, because it is the scariest thing in the world to send a kid out in a car, and they could be the best driver in the whole world, but the guy in the other lane may be the worst driver in the whole world. So now I'm starting to worry about it. They're grown and have kids. Now you got me all hyped up. But that probably is the scariest thing I've done, is send my son out on his own with all of his buddies, knowing what they're doing, driving, and just praying that he gets home in one piece. Madam Toastmaster.
That concludes table topics.